Talk about making a first impression. Paul Blackburn was outstanding in his Mets debut. I'll talk about his performance as well as Brandon Sproat with a great start in Double-A. We'll break it all down on today's show.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. FanDuel is hooking up customers all summer long with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so the big story of the day was Paul Blackburn making his Mets debut against the Angels, a team he actually faced in his last start with the Oakland Athletics, where he gave up 4 runs in 5 innings. Today, it was much better for Blackburn pitching with a new team as he went 6 strong, allowed just 1 run. A quality start in your debut is a pretty good way to make friends in that clubhouse. I got to say, it was really nice just watching him attack the zone. And we'll talk a little bit more about the pitch mix and everything else and the differences that we saw in his arsenal from his last time out against this same team to what he did tonight. But what you see with Blackburn is a guy that has 6 pitches who is going to attack the zone and hopefully keep the ball on the ground, be able to pitch himself out of some jams. We saw that a couple times, getting big double play balls. First inning, he got a double play ball after allowing 2 base runners. So that was a good way to erase that traffic, go into the dugout, putting up a 0 in your first inning. Second inning, he did give up a run, allowed a 1-out single, hit a batter, then gave up another single that scored a run. Francisco Alvarez helped him get out of the inning, throwing out a runner, and then he got a strikeout on Louis Guillorme to get out of the second. Sort of settled in from there. Third inning, a 1-2-3 frame. Fourth inning, worked around a walk and a base hit with 1 out. Got a big strikeout with those 2 runners on, then got a ground out to get out of that inning. Fifth inning, he erased the single with a double play ball, and that was one where Francisco Lindor ranged to his right. A great turn by him and Iglesias, who just looked so good together up the middle. When Jeff McNeil's out there, you still see the Mets turn double plays, and I don't even know how many extra double plays they turn when Iglesias is out there, but there's some double plays that are pretty. I think it was the one in the first inning where you saw Iglesias come across the bag, throw across his body. It's just fun watching him play infield, man. And I think Blackburn was loving it. After the game, they asked him about working with Francisco Alvarez first and foremost. And so incredible to hear a veteran pitcher come in and just rave about a young catcher, because he said throwing to Alvarez was unbelievable. He talked about how Alvarez, spent 20 minutes with him before even their pregame meeting, just getting to know each other, figuring out what he likes, how he likes to pitch in certain counts, all these different things. They then had their pregame meeting to plan everything out, to strategize for what they were going to do. And he basically gave it over to Alvarez, like, hey, you're calling the game. I trust you. If there's something you like, let's roll with it. And, early results, very good with those two. Again, 6 innings pitched, did allow 6 hits, so a lot of traffic, but only one run came across, walked 2, struck out 6, only 82 pitches to get through those 6 innings. So really solid stuff from Blackburn. Also talked about that middle infield behind him. It was a lot of fun to watch them. He said he can't wait to just sit back tomorrow and get to watch those guys play. And he just looks like the happiest guy in the world right now. And how could you not be? You go from being an Oakland Athletic, playing in front of nobody, and on a team that has no chance in the race. And that's pretty much been his career coming up in Oakland. Now, all of a sudden, you're under the bright lights with the Mets, but you're in the middle of a thick playoff race, and you got a chance here to contribute, pitch every 5th day, part of a 5-man rotation. I think it couldn't have worked out better for Blackburn. And for the Mets, not only did you have this guy for this year, you have him for next year as well. Great rotation depth, and you give up a guy in Cade Morris in that trade who I did like a lot, 3rd-round pick from last year, but he's another guy that's, I don't want to say he's going to be Paul Blackburn, but that's sort of his best outcome, is turning into a big league starter who's more of a back end guy, maybe middle of the rotation if everything breaks right. So Yeah, you give up all your control on Cade Morris to get Blackburn, but you have Blackburn when you need him right now, and I think he looked a heck of a lot better than Tyler McGill the last couple times we've seen him. So big upgrade for the Mets, it seems. Obviously, this is going up against the Angels. There could be some clunkers coming. Okay, this guy pitches in the zone. He could get hit hard, but I think he's just another quality starter that more times than not should give the Mets a chance to win. Now, the Mets were able to win this game because they got a great, top to bottom performance from their lineup. Every single guy got a base hit. Jose Iglesias helped get the Mets on the board early, had a leadoff double in the second, then Francisco Alvarez drove him in. And then Pete Alonso with the big hit of the day had a 2-run homer in the third to drive in Brandon Nimmo. Nimmo was 3 for 5 in the game today, so really good stuff to see him, for one, back in the lineup after fouling off that ball into his foot and getting pulled from the lineup his last time out. So good to see Nimmo out there, but more importantly, 3 for 5 day for a guy that's been struggling lately. Hopefully he can turn the corner a little bit. He also stole his 11th base of the season. He's 11 for 11 on stolen bases. It's a guy that never was predicated on the stolen base. So really great to see Nimmo as he evolves in his career, just add stuff to his bag. Really awesome to see him swiping bases, not just more frequently, but so efficiently. Now, the Mets also scored 2 more runs in the 6th inning. Harrison Bader, Francisco Lindor, JD Martinez all singled, with Martinez driving in Bader. Lindor scored on an error that came off the bat of Mark Vientos, and that's how the Mets got their 5 runs. Now, Carlos Mendoza could have stuck with Blackburn, had him try to go for a 7th inning, but with a 5-1 lead, a fresh bullpen, he didn't even try to risk that. He goes to Jose Butto, and Butto was sensational out of the bullpen again. Faced 6 batters, struck out 3 of them, retired the side in order twice, so 2 perfect innings. Then Phil Maton came on for the 9th. He had a perfect 9th. So just a great game top to bottom from the Mets when it came to the pitching. And now you look at them hopefully taking advantage for the rest of this series and maybe getting some games in the wild card race. I will talk a little bit about that in the next segment, but I want to break down Paul Blackburn's start a little bit further, as well as talk about what Blake Snell did tonight, because that was pretty impressive. We'll get to all of that in just a minute. First, though, a word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop, but as the playoffs have winded down with the NBA and the NHL, we've gotten fewer games, and the sports just aren't sportsing like I want them to, but FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want, because all I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. I told you yesterday, Pete Alonso as a prop to hit a home run and the Mets to win, you could combine that in a parlay. If you did that, you won big tonight, but you can do that again tomorrow. Maybe you feel better about Mark Vientos going yard on Saturday. Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Today's episode is also brought to you by Supply House. Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online with their easy-to-use website, which is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining Supply House's free Trade Master program, where every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from a free membership at supplyhouse.com/T-M and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Stay up to date with all the latest in the world of sports by checking out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. As I mentioned, Paul Blackburn's last start actually came against the Angels in his final start with the Athletics last week. Now, he gave up 2 2-run homers in that game, went 5 innings, allowed 5 hits, walked 1, only struck out 2, did get the win, but not a great outing. This one much better, 6 innings pitched, 6 hits allowed, but no extra base hits, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 1 double. I don't even think it was. I think it was all singles. He struck out 6 instead of only 2. just a much better outing. And if you look at the breakdown of his arsenal, there was a distinct difference in how he attacked the Angels last time with the A's and how he did tonight with the Mets. In that start, in an A's uniform, he threw his four-seam fastball 19 times, which was his primary offering, his slider 15 times, sinker 12, 11 cutters, 9 changeups, 6 curveballs. In this outing, he threw that cutter 22 times, so he doubled the usage of his cutter. That was his primary offering. His changeup, he went from 9 changeups to 21 changeups thrown, 14 sliders, about the same as his last time, 13 sinkers, 10 four-seam fastballs. So really cut back on the use of the four-seam, lean more into the cutter against lefties, sinker, changeup against righties, and it all worked for him. I was curious, have the Mets unlock something? Was there something hidden in the data that the A's couldn't pick up on because they don't spend, well, actually, A's are supposed to be Moneyball, right? But regardless, was there something that was just under the surface with that cutter? And are we going to all of a sudden see him continue to throw that cutter more than any other pitch? Well, I looked at the last 2 years, and that cutter has actually been the pitch that has had the highest batting average against of any of his pitches in his arsenal. So I don't think that was the case here. Instead, I think the Mets did a really good job studying what he did his last time, okay, and putting together a really good game plan that him and Francisco Alvarez executed to a T that worked for this matchup. And I think moving forward, the Mets are going to be able to get the most out of Paul Blackburn because they can put Alvarez behind the plate for him. And I think that's a huge help, even if it is Terrence. Both of these guys have been really good defensive catchers. But Alvarez in particular gets some of these pitchers to believe in their stuff a little bit more, have some more conviction, and really trust it and trust him. And the results have been great. So I think you could see Paul Blackburn really be the best version of himself down the stretch here. He doesn't have a lot of mileage on his arm this year because he had a foot injury. So in a lot of ways, you're getting a super fresh arm that over the last couple of years has gone over 100 innings pitched each year, who has been in the fours with his ERA on bad baseball teams where typically the defense behind you isn't as good. The effort at times isn't as good. And it's hard to stay sharp in that environment. Now you go to a playoff race where everyone's locked in, where you have this fantastic double play combination behind you with Francisco Lindor and Jose Iglesias. You got Harrison Bader playing center field. I mean, it's a pitcher's dream. And again, with that 6-pitch mix, the Mets really can focus on giving him a great game plan each time for the matchup that he has. And sure, there's going to be some starts where it's going to be a lot tougher and he might get hit pretty hard. But I think there's going to be a lot of outings that he's going to be able to go up, especially against an inferior matchup, and give you 6 strong innings, maybe even pitch deeper into games. And that's a huge benefit to this rotation. I just think he's a much more buttoned up, polished product than Tyler McGill is. And so to have him now slide into that last spot in your rotation, I think it does make the Mets a lot better. And it was really the perfect find to bolster that rotation. I had said previously that Jesse Winker might have been the best trade of the deadline. I think I'm in one start going to go back on that because the value that Paul Blackburn's going to add to this rotation over the final 2 months, as well as getting him for an additional year next season, that's an absolute steal from the New York Mets. And I think this was really the trade of the deadline that went under the radar completely. I didn't even give it enough credit at the time. Now you see it realized in this first start. Not that everyone's going to be a quality outing, 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run, but can he pitch to a sub-4 ERA or even a low 4 ERA for the final 2 months of the season? That's all the Mets really need. I think he's going to deliver on that promise. With that said, over the past week, I had really been talking up this idea that the New York Mets should go after Blake Snell. And funny enough, in his first start after the trade deadline where the Giants decide to hang on to him, he throws a no-hitter. It's a guy that hasn't even pitched past the 7th inning in his career. And now he said, look, I went the 8th, I went the 9th, complete game shutout, no-hitter. I did it all. You can't talk anymore. Blake Snell is on a roll right now. He's absolutely going to be a rental because this guy, the way he's pitching, is going to carve through the final 2 months of this season and hit the market next year. And hey, maybe the Mets sign him as a free agent. Probably not, considering they haven't shown any interest in him this past offseason or at this deadline. But I do wonder if this was a little bit of a missed opportunity. And now the Giants, sort of a sneaky threat in this wild card race, they got back-to-back complete game shutouts from Logan Webb and Blake Snell. It's the first time since Adam Wainwright and Shelby Miller back in 2013 that we have seen that. So pretty impressive stuff that they have now with Webb, with Snell, with Robbie Ray. The one good thing about Blake Snell throwing this no-hitter is it now eliminates Chris Heston's no-hitter as the most recent one in Giants history. Longtime Mets fans know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't need to spend any time on that. But I do wonder if there's going to be a moment at the end of this season where the Mets might regret not trading for Blake Snell, whether it's needing that frontline starter in the playoffs or if the Giants really get back into this race. The report from John Heyman was what the Giants wanted was a top 100 prospect and someone to eat that contract. And from the report, the Mets were not listed as a team that reached out. I can understand. You gave up Cade Morris, who is nowhere near a top 100 prospect, a fringe top 30 prospect in your system, probably top 30, maybe even fringe top 20, but regardless, not a top end prospect. And you get a year and a half of Paul Blackburn. I'm not really knocking the deadline strategy overall. And I understand not going all in on this season. Would I have one of the Mets to give up Drew Gilbert for Blake Snell? Probably not. And that might have been the price tag. So I'm not going to get too far into the weeds on this one, but it does feel like an opportunity might have been missed to get a frontline starter for this rotation. Granted, maybe the Mets don't need one. Now, when it comes to the rest of the wild card race, I will be keeping you guys posted throughout the final couple of months, a little bit more than I frequently would on what's going on around the league. So I just want to note here, the Cardinals lost to the Cubs again. The Pirates lost to the Diamondbacks. The Padres lost to the Rockies, so that was really good. Now the Padres and the Mets are even in that final wild card spot, but the Mets have the tiebreaker. The Diamondbacks are a half game up. The Cardinals are 2.5 games back. The Pirates are 3 games back, and the Giants are 4 games back. So still a bunch of teams that are bunched right there in the race. Could Brandon Sproat play a role down the stretch? He had a fantastic start on Friday night. I want to talk about that a little bit, as well as when we might see him, if we see him. There's a really interesting point made today on social media, so I want to go through all of that in just a minute. First, though, another word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. What I love about Liquid IV is both the convenience of just tearing open a pack, pouring it into 16 ounces of water, and there you go. You have a very refreshing beverage, and I love their strawberry lemonade flavor, but also you really feel the difference in hydration. I'm a runner, and for me to come back, I usually chug a couple glasses of water to start to feel hydrated. With Liquid IV, one drink, and I am, for one, enjoying it, and two, feel super hydrated. You tear, you pour, you live more. One stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me. Anytime news breaks on the Mets, you can ask me questions anytime. You also get the lineup graphics sent to your phone each day in a text message, so you never have to go on social media to see who's in the Mets starting lineup. It's sent right to your phone. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, we have to talk about Brandon Sproat today because he had an outstanding start on Friday night. Goes out there in the first inning, gives up a double, but strikes out 2. Second inning, gives up a leadoff single, then gets a line out. From that point on, from the second inning through the 5th inning, he struck out 11 consecutive batters. Goes 5 innings with 13 strikeouts, 2 hits allowed, no walks, no earned runs. And 11 strikeouts in a row is an interesting number because the MLB record in a game set by Tom Seaver and others have matched him is 10 consecutive strikeouts for a single game. Now, in the minor leagues, I'm sure it's happened way more where it's been more than that because, inferior competition. I don't think Brandon Sproat broke any records, at least not that I'm aware of, by striking out 11 in a row. But it shows you how good his stuff is and how, at times, he is just far and away better than his competition in Double-A. only threw 81 pitches to get through those 5 innings, 57 being strikes. Now, funny enough, Sean Reed-Foley blew his game, came in the 6th inning, walked 2, gave up a double. So just wanted to note there what Sean Reed-Foley did. Then there was a rain delay. So not a great outing for him. I'm sure he's going to need more time after this one. Kind of a little bit of not an injury setback, but a setback in his lack of control. Got to see him hone that in before he comes back up to the big league roster. But could Brandon Sproat be an impact arm out of the bullpen? I have been talking about this for months now, trying to speak it into his existence because I think Brandon Sproat could be an absolute weapon in an MLB bullpen this season right now. And in the playoffs, you need arms like that to shorten games, or even imagine you can have him throw 2 innings, maybe 3 innings in a playoff game. Let's just say you have to lean on a David Peterson or a Paul Blackburn or a Jose Quintana to make a playoff start, and they get you through 4. Imagine you can go to Brandon Sproat for the 5th, 6th, and 7th to shorten a game and give you a real chance. Brandon Sproat is definitely a candidate to come up this year. I talked about that on yesterday's show, but there was a fantastic note that I saw today on social media from Christopher Soto. Now, I've talked about Christopher before. He's the guy that came up with that Pete Alonso contract for me with the deferred money. He's an accountant that really likes the business behind baseball, and he made a great point about the Mets looking to maintain Sproat's rookie eligibility for next season for the PPI. Now, what is the PPI? PPI is the prospect promotion incentive. This was part of the most recent CBA, the collective bargaining agreement between the owners and the players. So this was one of the things that the owners and the players agreed to put in to incentivize teams to promote their top prospects early. Essentially what it does is it allows teams to get an extra draft pick if they have a top prospect on the big league roster for opening day or within the first 2 weeks of opening day, and they go on to win the Rookie of the Year, you get a draft pick. So last year with Gunnar Henderson, the Orioles got a draft pick. Gunnar came up at the end of the 2022 season, broke camp with the team in 2023, still as a rookie, won the award. Corbin Carroll, exact same thing. So you saw those guys get called up strategically at the end of 2022 after they were no longer in danger of losing their rookie eligibility. They thrived, and, well, Carroll in particular thrived. Gunnar struggled a little bit more, and then they win Rookie of the Year. Now their team's got an extra draft pick. Now, it's not just Rookie of the Year, though, that would allow you to get the extra draft pick. You also get a draft pick if that player, the PPI eligible player, finishes within the top 3 of MVP or Cy Young before they hit arbitration. So you really have like a 3-year window for your rookie or your PPI eligible player, let's say, to end up finishing in the top of an award race. Now, this is very important with Brandon Sproat because this is the type of arm that absolutely could win the Rookie of the Year next year or could be a Cy Young candidate early in his career if everything breaks right. He has that potential. So the Mets would be foolish to promote him next week and potentially risk not getting to take advantage of that. Now, when it comes to rookie eligibility, Brandon Sproat can't exceed 50 innings pitched this year or 45 days on the active roster. The season ends on September 29. So there's 29 days right there. You count back from the end of August. The earliest that the Mets could promote Brandon Sproat is August 17th. To do that, that's 45 days left of the season, and he could be part of their bullpen down the stretch and into the playoffs and still be a rookie next year. If he wins Rookie of the Year, you'd still get that draft pick. Now, I don't think the Mets are just waiting on this thing alone. I do believe that they are, not even considering promoting him before that date. And that's not something that I really had considered prior to tonight. Shout out to Christopher again for pointing it out because it is a really great point. I think if the Mets have, their plan set in stone, if they could have this work out the way they'd want it to, their bullpen will be a strength down the stretch, and they won't need Brandon Sproat. And they keep him in the minor leagues, making his starts for the final 2 months. Right now, he just matched Christian Scott's innings total from last year, 87 2/3. Last season, Sproat threw 106 1/3 at Florida, so he's not quite where he was last year. With 2 more months, probably gets maybe 7 more turns in the rotation, especially if he gets a call to AAA in September. That would put him, if he averages 5 innings per start, over 120 innings pitched. That's a nice sweet spot to be in. And then you have a full off season before he's ready to go, set to break camp in the starting rotation. I honestly think this prospect is good enough that the Mets can count on him, barring health, to be in the opening day rotation next year. Obviously, you'd say, hey, go win the job in spring training. You wouldn't want to just say, hey, you're handed the job. But let's just say the Mets have, Sean Manaea back potentially. He has the option. He might opt out, actually, the way he's pitching. We'll say they have one of Manaea or Severino back. Kodai Senga, Paul Blackburn, David Peterson, okay? You can go in and not even sign a free agent and just say, all right, we got Christian Scott, we got Brandon Sproat, we got Mike Vassell, Jose Budo, and you can just let those guys compete for starter spots. And for Sproat in particular, that could give you a chance to get that PPI, the prospect out of it, the draft pick. It's definitely something to think about. And I'll tell you what, I said this on Twitter. I want to say it on the show just to stake my claim in it now, because I've been debating on this for a while. And I will say he didn't pitch against the best team tonight, but still, he had this level of performance. I think Brandon Sproat is the best prospect in the Mets system now, bar none. Okay. If you still call Christian Scott a prospect, Brandon Sproat is better. And part of it's not fair to Jet Williams because he hasn't gotten a chance to play this year. But to me, Brandon Sproat right now is trending towards being maybe a top 5 pitching prospect in baseball, maybe even top 3. I mean, he's going to shoot up all the top 100s. At Just Baseball, I was texting Arm Lane tonight. I asked him about this in particular. I said, am I crazy to say Brandon Sproat's now the Mets top prospect? He said, no, not at all. I'm right there with you. And I asked him how high in the top 100 is Brandon Sproat going to be? Is he going to crack the top 30? He said, yes. I don't know how high in the top 30 Brandon Sproat's going to crack, but for us at Just Baseball, he's going to be considered a top 30 prospect in the game. And that is really exciting stuff. So, yeah, this is a prospect to be really hyped up about. And I would not rule out seeing him this year. I've been saying it for a while, but now you have a date to look at. After August 17th, a couple more weeks, this could become a reality. And if we see him start to make some appearances in the bullpen in AA, that's going to be our indication, because Corbin Burns, I've referenced this a lot, when he was in the bullpen for the Brewers in their run to the NLCS in 2018, he made 6 appearances in the minor leagues coming out of the bullpen first, then made the transition in August, and then had a fantastic September in their bullpen, leading into a really good postseason run pitching for them. So I would not think that this is out of the question at all. We'll see what happens. But that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. Thank you all for tuning in. On tomorrow's show, we'll continue to break down this series against the Angels, whatever happens Saturday night's game. I also want to spend some time on Mark Vientos, so we'll see if tomorrow is the day to do that. Make sure you, again, follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Try to make the push to 10,000 subs. So I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. You can follow me on social media at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day. Now for your second watch, head over to YouTube and check out the first ever 24/7 streaming channel that covers everything in the world of sports, talking about Locked On Sports Today with our local experts from each team and our league-wide experts from each league. Locked On Sports Today is streaming 24/7 on YouTube and on Amazon Fire TV.